We rarely think about the complex infrastructure keeping our lives running. Clean water flows, buses arrive, and public schools open every morning. Maintaining that level of civilization costs trillions of dollars. It is easy to assume state and local governments simply write their own rules and tax whatever they want to cover the tab, but their ability to raise money is strictly limited. First, the Constitution boxes them in. States cannot tax interstate commerce, like imports and exports or federal property. Second, over half the states have expenditure limits, tying government spending to inflation, strictly capping what they can collect and spend. So the demand for public services constantly rises, but the legal power to raise money is locked in a straitjacket. How do local and state governments actually pay their bills? State governments lean heavily on the sales tax. It is a system born out of absolute desperation during the Great Depression, when property values collapsed and states needed immediate daily cash flow. Mechanically, it operates as a flat percentage added to the dollars spent on everyday goods, from cars to household merchandise. This chart demonstrates the main criticism of this system. Because basic necessities cost the same, taking the exact same flat dollar amount means a much higher percentage of a low-income earner's total paycheck is wiped out. This makes it a regressive tax. The sales tax guarantees states a steady stream of daily revenue, but it shifts an unbalanced portion of the financial burden directly onto the working class. Zooming into the municipal level, our cities and counties, the financial weight shifts to property taxes. Today, they make up about 3/4 of all local tax revenue. To calculate this bill, governments look at two numbers. The market value is what a property would sell for today. But governments usually tax its assessed value, a lower calculated percentage of that market price, which the homeowner pays a small tax on. Because local services rely almost entirely on the value of local real estate, wealthy communities with expensive homes collect more revenue, allowing them to afford high-end public services. Less wealthy communities, stuck with lower property values, struggle to maintain basic infrastructure. This disparity is so stark that several state Supreme Courts have ruled against using property taxes to fund local schools entirely, arguing that it violates the 14th Amendment's guarantee of equal protection under the law. With local taxes creating such severe financial inequalities town by town, lower governments are forced to look higher up the chain for financial support. This chart tracks intergovernmental revenue flow. The federal government pipes down 1/4 of state funds. State governments pass down 1/3 of municipal funds. This flows as strict categorical grants for specific goals, or open block grants for general purposes. Accepting these funds means adopting strict federal guidelines. At times, the federal government issues unfunded mandates, official orders requiring local governments to implement costly new environmental or health standards without actually providing the cash to do so. Relying on this top-down money keeps cities afloat, but it strips away their financial independence, forcing them to execute national goals just to balance their local budgets. When taxes and grants fall short, states fill the gaps with government side hustles. For example, resource-rich states generate significant revenue by applying severance taxes directly to the extraction of natural resources, like oil, coal, and gas. Many assume state lotteries bring in a major windfall. In reality, once the prize payouts and management costs are subtracted, lotteries provide less than 1% of a state's total revenue. When it comes to major, multi-year expenses, like highway construction or building new schools, governments use their final tool. They borrow the money. They do this by issuing municipal bonds. Think of a bond as a government credit card. Investors provide the city with upfront cash today, and the city promises to pay them back by a specific date, with interest that is typically exempt from federal taxes. To survive the legal straitjacket of revenue limits and funding gaps, local governments operate as highly leveraged institutions, carrying nearly $2 trillion in debt. Viewed as an economic system, a physical town operates as a precarious ledger. Every park, school, and paved road is balancing on a fragile mix of sales taxes, assessed property values, federal block grants, and municipal debt. How we manage that ledger is a constant political tug-of-war. The conservative argument holds that keeping tax limits strict leaves more money in the private sector, which drives long-term economic health. The opposing liberal argument counters that higher tax revenues are a necessity to maintain equitable public programs and keep the basic functions of government running. Ultimately, state and local elections are the deciding factor for exactly how these financial gaps will be filled. State and local financing provides the fiscal blueprint for how communities afford to live together.